Hello, I'm Hal Lublin.
And I'm Mark Gagliardi.
Since the dawn of humanity, one issue has gone unsettled. With the fate of the world in the balance, we're here to settle, once and for all. Best New York movie.
That's right. Don't worry, everyone. We got this.
Podcasts should have a theme song. Podcasts should not have a theme song. Yes, they should. No, they shouldn't. They sound good. Yeah, but people are just going to skip past it. You know what? You're right. We got this.
Everybody, welcome to our Dragon Con panel, now with 500% better sound.
Yeah, we're not in a giant room. We don't hear it bouncing back at us from every direction. And it sounds like there's a bunch of us in the audience saying the same things back at us.
That's right. This is the first time my mic has worked at any Dragon Con I've gone to.
Do you guys have theme music?
We do have theme music.
Song.
Yeah. This will be the first time in Dragon Con that your theme music played at the right time.
Everything's perfect. Thanks to the Dragon Con AV crew for helping out with this one. Of course.
No, that's the outro music. That's the outro music.
Not that. Please.
That's just a song from my iPod. That's just not supposed to be played.
Oh, and now
that's
there's just an
Nana
episode
Cherry.
of Maud on the screen.
I just like Nana Cherry. Every once in a while I need to take a buffalo stance.
God.
This is We Got This, the podcast where Mark Gagliardi, my comedy partner, and I settle the most important, unimportant debates in the world. We are joined by Doc Hammer and Jackson Publick. You know them. You love them.
Cheer for them now. Ready, go.
Cheer for them now. Go. Great.
Oh, sit down, please, please.
We've got a limited amount of time. It's crazy to me that we have a limited amount of time here for a virtual.
Really?
I want to go 9 hours. We have 50. We're a hard 55 minutes. I'm watching the clock now.
Wow.
We are here to settle once and for all the best New York movie. And this was suggested by Tommy Bobo, who sounds like a character in a New York film.
Hey, Tommy Bobo. Yeah, he's a good man.
Tommy Bobo.
It is. Yeah,
Tommy
better be
Bobo.
good, fellas.
Yeah.
If it ain't good, fellas, I'm going to be real upset.
We called him Tommy Bobo because he said everything like Bobo, Bobo.
Tommy Bobo is my pet monkey. Oh, I shouldn't have brought the monkey on the spaceship. Tommy Bobo.
Tommy Bobo, stay away from those buttons.
Oh, geez, Tommy Bobo got us lost.
There goes the airlock.
So we're here today to talk about New York movies. It is a huge topic, and it is too big a topic for 55 minutes. And this is a round table or a 4 rectangles of Zoom who like to talk. And let's jump right into this, shall we? How are we going to tackle this? Are we looking for the most New York movie? What constitutes the best New York movie? Do we want the best movie that is set in New York? Do we want a movie that most represents the city itself? What do you guys think?
Here's what I'm looking for.
I think all these things get points.
Yeah, I want a movie that when you watch it, you felt like you've been in New York.
Okay.
Right? You didn't feel like it was set in New York. You see, the Sophie's Choices, like that doesn't mean anything because
that's not the point of Sophie's Choice.
Yeah. You feel like you're in New York. I would also like it to hinge turn on New York. So New York is a character of the film. That's important too.
So then Highlander, Finding Forrester, and Answer Your Pants in 1939. We're done.
That's all we need.
That's the whole list.
We did it.
Yeah.
Finding Forrester.
Highlander takes place in too many places. I want it totally in New York.
So let me ask you this then. That's
bonus points for New York director.
Okay.
You know.
Do you think you said you wanted to all
Not a requirement.
Highlander takes place in too many places. Do you guys think it ought to be a movie that takes place specific to one neighborhood in New York? Like how expansive do we want?
I kind of love when they go all the way around the boroughs.
I just want to feel like it's in New York the whole time.
Okay.
Right. Can we at least say this? It has to have actually been shot in New York, right?
Yeah, we can't do.
Ben Affleck Daredevil is out.
Darn it! That was my choice.
Well, then you have Eyes Wide Shut, which is clearly shot in a studio, but feels very New York and shot by a New Yorker, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that makes up for some of it, but I mean, if you're talking about if you're like down to 3 movies, I think actually shot on location is like edges out some of the other ones. But
okay. I'll let that be a
I'm just
final
saying
criterion.
points for that. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So why don't we do this? We have a list of a bajillion movies that after some angry emails today got a bajillion more added to it. So we have a
90% of which were from memory.
Of course.
I wasn't going to call out who added all of them.
I didn't read my email, so Jackson was speaking for me.
That's fair.
Okay.
So I would say if you guys would allow it, what do you think to each of us? We'll just start going around and we can drop in maybe over the course of this 2 or 3 each that are our top picks. How does that work? How does that sound?
I like it.
And to our guests, Doc and Jackson, I guess, either one of you want to lead off?
Yeah.
Jackson's going to lead off. Echoey Jackson.
All
Not
right.
clear like Doc Hammer. It's not
I got a tiled room. I'm in a tiled space.
Yeah, it's like a bathroom in there. Yeah.
I'm going to go After Hours, Dog Day Afternoon, Annie Hall.
Taking of Pelham? No? Original Taking of Pelham?
You can have it. Absolutely. I mean, if I could have 5. Yeah. No, you know what? Put them all in. I don't know.
You want to put all 3 of them in. What makes them, for you, maybe a little bit of each one, what makes it kind of a quintessential New York movie?
Tell me what 3 I said again, because I don't remember.
You said
After Hours, Dog Day Afternoon, and a third one that I missed.
After Annie Hall.
Annie Hall, sure.
Right. Annie Hall is obvious. Woody Allen is, I know it's a touchy subject. But,
yeah, well, that's why it's not going to be Manhattan.
But I mean, that is one of them. Although that
Manhattan is a gorgeous
story. Is not exactly a relatable New York story,
right?
But it is a love letter to Manhattan, and you like some Gershwin in there.
The opening, I think, the opening of Manhattan is perfect. That black and white, just shots of New York City with Gershwin playing over the top of it, and then it is problematic the rest of the movie.
I want to exclude that from the list only because it's such a idealized version of Manhattan. It's like it's the Manhattan that doesn't really exist, that black and white beautiful Manhattan that's in somebody's imagination. It's not really Manhattan,
right?
It's the Manhattan of somebody that used to live in Manhattan and then moved away.
Yeah, that's what you always remember, the best version of it.
Yeah.
Well, that wasn't even on the list.
It's the ex-girlfriend of Manhattan.
The first Woody Allen movie that I ever saw was Manhattan Murder Mystery in the theater. Ooh. And I came out of it going like, why are we making a big deal about this guy? Because he had Alan Alda, like, I guess we should solve this. I don't know, maybe that person's a murderer. It was like it's really bad.
I saw Sleeper, which doesn't take place in the present day.
No.
But that was amazing for a kid.
That was great. Yeah, I went back and watched it and then came to appreciate some of his stuff, but that is a rough one to start on.
Okay, so After Hours is on there because I feel
I was just going to ask.
It's an underrated one.
I don't know the movie After Hours.
Let me throw After Hours.
Scorsese,
who lives in Lower Manhattan, films a movie in Lower Manhattan that takes place entirely in Lower Manhattan in like 4 blocks. It's like Spring Street, Prince, that whole area, just going from bar to apartment, meeting all the kinds of people you meet in New York. It is so quintessentially New York. And it's good. Right. You guys should see it. You should take some time and watch it.
It's an offbeat movie. Like, it's got the spirit of it fits. And it's all about just like meeting weirdos and having like the worst night of your life.
Yeah, and it has the guy in it.
But also, it's also got, it's like the worst night of your life because you keep following, like it plays out exactly the way a night would if you're a young man in New York, where you follow some pretty girl to some dumb party or something like that, and then just like weird crap happens to you and you lose her for a while, and it's like it's a horror story, really.
It's a horror story, and he's chasing Roseanne Arquette, who's lovely, and she ends up killing herself. Do you remember that?
Oh, right.
She kills her. Like, it's depressing. You don't even think about it that way. You think it's fun. She kills herself, and then he finds out that the bartender was actually her husband or boyfriend and had the apartment. Boyfriend. Like, everything's intertwined. It's pretty good. It has
Terry Garr is a weirdo.
Terry Garr playing Phoebe from Friends before Phoebe from Friends knew she was Phoebe from Friends. Yeah, and she's like obsessed with the 60s because the movie's made in the 80s. And if you want to watch it now, you just go, oh, that person's obsessed with the early 2000s. For instance, they're wearing a Fergie shirt instead of the 60s thing. I'm trying to make it contemporary for you.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you for updating
Anytime.
Griffin Dunn stars in it. Dyed in the Wool New Yorker right there.
It's good to see Griffin Dunn without half his face torn off, by the way.
Yeah.
Because that's the only Griffin Dunn I always remember is Griffin Dunn in American Werewolf in London. Yeah. Half his face is torn off. And it doesn't have the guy who sold Dr. Pepper in the late 70s.
The
I think
song.
he's actually Griffin Dunn's soulmate, and they always travel together. Again, because American Werewolf in London is deeply entrenched into my psyche. So,
well, this one is not one.
Who's that one? Who's that one actor who's in it? He's also the villain in Desperately Seeking Susan, which I hope is on your list, Doc.
Chris.
Oh my goodness.
No.
And he's like the lackey villain in No Way Out. What's his name? Is it like Durst or something? Is he got a name like that?
John Hurd is in this?
No.
Is he the one? I'm just looking at the cast list.
But
he does have Bronson Pinchot. Balky is in it.
His character's name is Horst in After
Will
Hours.
Patton.
Yeah.
Tom Hurd?
Oh, Will Patton. Sure.
Yeah.
The great Will Patton.
I'm looking at this cast. This cast is amazing. It's got Catherine O'Hara. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got Bronson Pinchot in it.
Balky Bartakamouse.
Yeah.
Bartakamouse.
Balky.
So because we are on a time crunch, we're going to move on to some more movies. Let's talk about Dog Day Afternoon. Park Slope movie, right?
No.
Isn't it? I thought it was.
No, it's like further out in Brooklyn. It's more
the Midwood was the
something like that.
The actual one. But yeah, it is a Brooklyn movie. It is Al Pacino at his Al Pacino early best. It's one of the few performances we ever got from John Cazale.
Sidney Lumet, who's like one of the pantheon of New York directors. So
yeah. And I think that what that movie does beautifully is it is not only is it a movie of its place, it's a movie of its time.
Right.
Right. It's very much about it's a true story
of the.
Can I play devil's advocate on that?
Yeah.
It takes place entirely in a bank and then outside of the bank until it gets super depressing. And it takes place in an airport where they kill people. I don't want to ruin the.
It's all right. You already told us that she kills herself at the end of After Hours.
Yeah.
Not in the end. Right in the middle. It's weird. Like right in the pocket.
Isn't that disqualifying Pelham for taking place on a subway and in underground subway offices that we've never been in? There's so many people there. There's so many New York characters yelling at each other.
They have to get the money to the subway, so they drive through the streets of Manhattan.
Right. They
and
crash
you really get a sense really get a sense of the city at that moment. And everybody's got those precious New York accents, except for what's his name there? No, not Matha.
He just always sounds like
Robert Shaw.
Robert Shaw, who just has that beautiful Shaw-ian accent, which is Quint primarily. He's always looking for doll's eyes in the subway.
Do you think that disqualifies Dog Day Afternoon, that it could be that because it's one location and it is that bank? Does that make it a New York? Because we don't see New York as much physically, is it less of a New York movie?
No.
I'm going to throw out mine. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
And I'm going to tell you all it's got going for it. Problem is, it's a 2-hour film that's very hard to finish. Okay.
2 whole hours.
Now you have how many are on that list?
About 500.
Right.
Oh, the big list. Right.
Yet it is bereft of this one film.
Oh God.
First of all, written by Tama Janowitz. Can you get more New York than Tama? You can't.
Oh, okay. I know what you're saying.
Yeah, right. Tama Janowitz, right? Although here's the weird part. Is it directed by a New Yorker? No. It's a View from an Outsider Merchant Ivory film. What is this? Merchant Ivory film. Tama Janowitz is the writer. Okay. She's also in it. Bernadette Peters, lovely. Come on, who doesn't love her? We all saw Steve Martin when we were a kid. Right. I am throwing out, also it has New York in the title, Slaves of New York.
I've never even heard of this movie. What is Slaves of New York?
Slaves of New York is about a bunch of artists.
Mid-'80s?
mid-'80s, perfectly mid-'80s, shot entirely in New York, real New York apartments, real neighborhoods. Like, you can find out where they are. Anytime someone's downtown, they're truly downtown. Lower East Side Gallery, you can see what the Lower East Side looked like with the, like a limousine parked next to a burning car. Those are the days, were they not? Very weird. Very weird. Like an indigent next to a yuppie. Very strange New York. Kind of a love story, kind of a story about just how hard it is to get by in New York at that time.
Young people
mild
trying to make
comedy.
It in what, the fashion business? What is their thing?
Well, she makes hats.
Forget.
Bernadette Peters makes hats. Her boyfriend is a painter, and he paints these like pictures of comic books, but makes them huge. All the artwork in it is spot on. As a matter of fact, it still looks like the crap in New York. Nothing's changed. I think it may have been that every artist saw that movie and go, "That's what art looks like. That's what I'm going to make." Or nobody's been thinking about it for a long time. Different topic, by the way. But this, to me, is the quintessential New York film.
Okay.
All right. You've got two more.
But it's tough to get through. It's hard to watch.
It's 2 hours.
And I feel like
It's 2 hours. It's 2 hours long, and it's hard to watch.
It's more authentic than Desperately Seeking Susan, but I feel like you're getting a lot of the same stuff from them.
Okay.
Helps you guys.
Yeah.
All right.
That definitely helps.
It has Chris Sarandon, and isn't he in Desperately
Dog
Seeking
Day.
Susan?
Is he?
Mm-hmm. I think
He's in
Chris
Dog
Sarandon
Day.
in Desperately?
No, he's Desperately Seeking Susan. He's in. No, it's
He's in
Griffin
Dog
Dunn
Day.
who's in Who's That Girl? Griffin Dunn yet again in a New York movie.
What is up with Griffin Dunn? The best New York movie is anything Griffin Dunn is in.
Yeah, it also has what's her name? Mercedes Rule in it.
Ooh.
Right.
Okay.
And by the way, Mercedes rules in this film.
She's great.
Thanks, Gene
Big
Shalit.
fan. She's in Big. She's in Lost in Yonkers. She's great. Another New York movie.
Fisher King.
Fisher King.
New York movie.
Yeah.
It's anything if it's got Griffin Dunn and Mercedes Rule in it.
Lost in Yonkers.
That's the winner. Yeah. That's got to be the winner of
and it's not a lot of people that you like seen. And also there's like cameos that aren't even remotely announced, like passing by the camera and you go, "Oh, who's the guy who was, ran the Village Voice for Michael Musto?"
Oh yeah.
Musto just walks by the camera and you're like, that's a gift to all true New Yorkers.
He does like a Canadian cross.
Young
where he's like,
Michael Musto.
walks by.
Yeah, that's like Rex Reed showing up at Superman, but for a different crowd.
Yeah, and it's more of a gift than Rex Reed, because Rex Reed is nobody's gift. Nobody wants Rex Reed showing up at Superman.
Michael Musto is nobody's gift either. Come on.
Michael Musto's fantastic. By the way, I'm drinking Manhattan Special Soda.
Hey, look at that.
Nice.
Hey.
And I am in New York for this podcast, so I think I have some kind of powerful authority.
So you get double points for everything that you say.
I would like to think my word has more weight. That's all I'm saying.
So you get two more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
Top
telling
three.
you, one of them is After Hours, because After Hours
We said that already.
We already talked about it.
It really takes place in Manhattan. And when Jackson and I were trying to figure out which one we wanted to do, I was pretty high on like 80s one-hit wonders, but kind of only my
Like what?
house.
Like what, 9.5 weeks?
No, I mean,
my brother was an extra.
Literally, he was in
Really?
9.5 weeks.
And Pritzi's Honor for like
I know
hot
people in
6
all the
months. He was
Spider-Man
trying to be an
films.
extra in New York movies.
No, I mean, this Slaves in New York is an 80s one-hit wonder. I mean, that was and not that Merch and
Not
Ivory
even
didn't go
hit.
to direct a lot of fantastic films, but what else? Yep, I'm going to go with Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. And here's one reason. One, takes place entirely in New York. You couldn't have that plot anywhere else in New York because it's about a subway being held up. And I'm not talking about the remake. I'm talking about the original one, obviously.
Mhm.
Not that I don't love Denzel Washington, because he is top tier with me. I wish he was in it when he was 15, 17. How old would Denzel have been? Someone get on the internet, find out how old Denzel would have been
During the
first
original
filming.
Taking of Pelham.
Yeah, because I would have loved to see him just
Probably
come
a
in.
teenager.
Paper. Who wants a paper? Hey kid, I'll take a paper. Denzel Washington cameo. It has mad dash through the streets of New York, shot in New York, which you don't see that much anymore. Like if stuff is shot in New York, which it is, they'll never do a car chase. They always just get a couple blocks, show one neighborhood, but this clearly shot entirely in Manhattan. Subway, shot in a real subway. And Subway, Subway, it's a Subway with all the people on the subway with the, I'm the this guy.
It's not the underground. It's not the BART. It's not the T. Yeah.
No, it's not it's not, you don't need a Charlie card.
And there is nothing like that. That is not something that's been reproduced in any other city. The New York subway system is arguably the quintessentially New York thing because it hits you in all 5 of your senses.
Yeah, and this was before they figured out how to get the graffiti
all 5 senses, all 5 boroughs.
So it looks super New York.
Yeah. It's disgusting. Yeah. It was so gross.
I would also like to put out New York Stories, which I don't remember, but it says New York.
I watched it yesterday in preparation for this because I was like, that's got to be it, right? It's Scorsese, Coppola, and Woody Allen.
Right. Doesn't Buscemi in one of them, or Buscemi? Right. Yeah. And he's also in Slaves of New York, so I always get the two. Like, I think I made one movie in my head out of After Hours, Slaves of New York, and New York Stories, and I think that might win. Doc Hammer's crazy, mixed up version of all those movies, all of them featuring a young Steve Buscemi.
It's the gritty New York into the woods.
Yeah. It's called The York. You just buy them all. That's life in New York.
I'm putting that one out. My childhood memory of all those films turned into one. Jackson saw New York Stories. What's the problem with it?
Oh, it's the Coppola story is even more annoying than I remembered it being.
And you remembered it to be annoying.
Yes. Yeah. The Scorsese one is the best. It's like Nick Nolte, Roseanne Arquette. Steve Buscemi is like he's a performance artist that Roseanne Arquette slept with, and it's all about being a loft living, obnoxious, drunk New York action painter. You know, first time I ever heard certain Cream songs. I mean, it's Scorsese, so like great music, great shots, troubling morality and stuff like that. The Coppola one's annoying. It's like it's almost like an updated Eloise about a little rich girl who lives in a hotel. And then the Woody Allen one is like one of his short stories. It's like surreal and silly, and I like it a lot. But yeah,
it seems like if this episode were best era of New York movies, these all fit into such a narrow window. Do you think it's because that version, that super gritty version of New York, is the more interesting version to watch on film?
No, I'm going to tell you why. That is true. This was when the studio system was dissolving,
right?
And these young guys started making these relatively cheap, gritty movies, and they were all shot on location where they lived, and it really gave this great grittiness to it. And this is my last pick. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it's on the list. If it's not, you should be ashamed of yourself with The Muppets Take Manhattan. Come on, kids. This is what it is. It's Mean Streets.
Hey, Ken Plume is off mic right now, biting his knuckle.
Yeah.
That's the greatest New York film in the history of film. Mean Streets, I would say, is my last pick. Mean Streets.
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Let's talk about Mean Streets.
It takes place all in the Lower East Side.
It's so sweaty.
It's a sweaty film.
It's a sweaty movie.
It's a sweaty, claustrophobic movie. It really looks like all these films take place in my neighborhood, by the way. So I can see it and I can navigate through the film. There's nothing worse than seeing a film and you recognize a corner and then they show the next corner and you're like, that's on the other side of town. It's a lie. Yeah. When the camera turns, you know where it is. It's a movie that actually goes into St. Patrick's Cathedral. Is it Patrick's or Paul's? What's the one on the corner of Mulberry?
The one by your house?
By my house.
It's neither, isn't it?
St. Patrick's is the one in Midtown.
No, it's not the big one.
The one with the weird brick wall around it, and yeah.
Yes, and that's the thing. Mean Street. I always look in the little hole in the brick wall, like what's in there.
Why is it not San Gennaro, by the way?
It should be. Yeah. But in Mean Streets, they actually shot in that graveyard. So it's the only time I've ever seen the graveyard because they won't let me in. So Mean Streets to me is part of like a get to know your neighborhood.
Right.
Okay.
I've never seen in there. Great film. Oh, and they're like crawling into other people's rooms and stuff. Remember that? Did you see Mean Streets recently, Jackson?
It's probably been about 8 years.
They go into like other people's apartments by going through the window and going up to the roof and stuff like that.
Right.
So New York thing to do. So low.
The air shafts, because it's all tenements. Yeah.
So that's my last one. And yeah,
Godfather 2, when you open the window, you hide this for me to your neighbor.
Yeah. Exactly.
I love that New York thing of
these are two different eras we're discussing though. One is like your 70s thing, and the other ones are mid 80s. Like that's the New York we wanted to be a part of. The like Desperately Seeking Susan and
the sort of punk mid 80s New York.
Yeah, like it's a mess, and we're getting to be teenagers who are starting to want to live there.
Yeah.
So I mean, also bear in mind, like we're of a certain age. So like the 70s is our childhood, the 80s is the beginning of our like wanting to have an adult life somewhere. Yeah. So that's why they're going to ring.
And then by the 90s, we're trying to live it.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's some good 90s ones.
What?
He said with skepticism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have one for the 90s one, Mark?
Where's that list?
Do I have a 90s one?
Yeah, do you have your three? Do you know what they are, Mark?
There's Crooklyn.
Die Hard.
Jackson, Crooklyn.
There's Die Hard 3.
Die Hard with is that your third? Is Crooklyn your third?
Well, Crooklyn is
would
like
be
that.
His fifth, by the way.
Crooklyn. I'm a New Yorker. I said my answer somewhere. Wait, I told you this.
No, Crooklyn is
Slaves of New York, Taking Pelham 163, New York Stories, Mean Streets, and Crooklyn.
Yeah, I'll exclude Do the Right Thing and include Crooklyn. Do the Right Thing is very New York, but it's like it's a hot, balmy, unhappy film that doesn't remind me of a New York that I love. Crooklyn reminds me exactly of a New York that I love. And the whole kind of how a family lives in, they're in Brooklyn, but how a family lives in New York.
I'll drop in my three now because I think it's interesting that you brought up Mean Streets and Crooklyn because two of mine were Taxi Driver and Do the Right Thing. Just trying to look, this is not just personal favorites, but, at the idea of what a New York movie is and means to maybe those outside of New York who don't have as intimate a knowledge of what's going on there. Mm-hmm. And then also, just for me personally, my one I wanted to throw in was Ghostbusters.
Sure.
Because it has nothing to do with being a New York movie except when they're driving the Ecto-1 around the city.
But it is all over. They work at Columbia University. They go to the New York
they meet the
Library
mayor
at the beginning.
And there's Saturday Night Live
Central
guys.
Park West. Yeah,
they are representative
from New York. They are the least New York group. It's
but Saturday Night Live is a New York institution. So.
They were all of that. And that was my version of, you said the things you were obsessed with growing up. That was my thing that I was obsessed with growing up, was specifically getting not just to New York, but to Studio 8H in Rockefeller Center. So that was my version of New York. The aspirational version of New York I had was always Midtown Manhattan. But I want to talk about Do the Right Thing, about this, those four movies, sort of Crooklyn and Do the Right Thing together as let these movies duke it out, and Mean Streets and Taxi Driver.
Oh,
because one thing I love about Taxi Driver is that character. Another one that I wanted to throw in, if we're talking, and because this sort of feels like an opposite of Taxi Driver, is Wall Street. Taxi is Wall Street. Yeah, the
car wash.
Taxi.
Wall Street. Wall Street was on your list, Doc.
Because
we were just throwing them out yesterday.
When we were throwing them out yesterday, I did say Wall Street because it's so New York. That and what's that? Wretched American Psycho.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, and those movies, along with Taxi Driver, they don't just feel like what and where New York is. That they feel like who New York is. Like the characters in Wall Street are those aspirational holes, for lack of a better way of putting it.
I just can't get behind it. As a guy that has lived in New York most of his life, those terrible people are not what I want to think about when I think of New York. They're wretched.
You want the lovely Lower East Side artists who are
downtown people. Yeah,
downtown folk.
Downtown folk. I don't want those.
or Central Park intellectuals. I like them too.
Or Midtown Ghosts. Midtown Ghosts.
Or like Brooklyn Squid and the Whale intellectuals, that kind of, the people you wish you were raised by. When you go to their house, you're like, I can't believe you live in New York and you have a building. I can't believe you're you have a whole building. Because you don't have buildings in New York. I have an apartment the size of one of your bathrooms. I guarantee it. It's tiny.
Okay, so
they're pretty nihilistic though. Those two movies, that's why I don't want to vote for them, because they're right.
Wall Street or Do the Right Thing and Taxi Driver.
Yeah, Taxi Driver
more than. I mean, I love it. Yeah, and I like
Taxi Driver is just
but I don't like it representing.
That's the thing, and all the glitz and glamour of Wall Street is the utter darkness and despair of Taxi Driver. Oh
my God,
it's bleak. It's so wretched and bleak.
Yeah,
it's hard to watch. And that is a part of New York. These people that live in New York, but they're not a part of New York. They don't go out of their house. They're not a part of all the cool stuff going on. They just sit in their apartments and just start hating people, hating filth, and hating everything. This goes for outside of New York, of course.
Yeah, but it's not uniquely New York.
No, unique New York. No, it's not specific to New York, but it is one of those things in New York, and you meet those kind of people, and they're just wretched, and I don't want to celebrate them by voting for them.
Great. I am all on board to stick or to thumb my nose at nihilism.
Sure.
I will do that happily. But I still want Ghostbusters on the list, and I don't think that the Do the Right Thing sweatiness is a downside of Do the Right Thing.
Well, because there's Crooklyn, and if how many Spike Lees do you want? Crooklyn is so New York. It's so beautifully New York. It's so New York family. Mm-hmm. It's so that getting an icy and it gets all over your face kind of New York.
I mean, Scorsese's on here multiple times, as is Woody Allen so far, and also, I mean, Do the Right Thing, part of it is like an indictment on Ed Koch, which feels like a very New York thing to do, to have strong feelings about Ed Koch and put them in your movie.
It is particularly New York.
Yeah.
This guy needs a movie about him. He's awful.
I'm going to show him.
But I'm the mayor who read my book. The mayor.
How am I doing?
How am I doing? I'm the mayor.
Is it
Hal, what's on your list?
I feel like so many of the big ones have been taken, and I want to give a shout out to Remo Williams' The Adventure Begins, only because the final battle takes place on a scaffolded Statue of Liberty, which during my childhood is when they were renovating it. So anytime we would take a trip to New York from Philly, you'd be like, well, you can't go to the Statue of Liberty. It's just that thing surrounded by girders and planks. So
it was the did you ever go see it when it was the grid over the torch before it just became the solid gold on the torch? There's that iron sort of.
What movie did you just mention?
Remo Williams.
The Adventure Begins, directed by a Frenchman, starring.
Are you sure it's not? This is what my head heard when you said that. Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief. That's exactly what I heard. I'm that takes place in New York? I don't think so.
Practically the same movie, and it has a very offensive Asian stereotype played by Joel Grey. He is he's the Yoda
face.
Yeah, he's in pure yellow face. But I love that the idea that this movie called itself The Adventure Begins, which tells you that they were planning on making at least 3 more.
Oh my God! Can we do a whole other episode about best movies that were supposed to launch a franchise and it didn't work?
Yeah, yes. It'll be our Artemis Fowl episode.
Yeah, no, Jumper, Looper. Isn't Jumper the Looper sequel, though?
No, come on.
No.
I'm kidding.
And then Falling Down.
Yeah.
Falling Down.
I was going to have
Master Commander.
Oh, my God.
That wins,
Which is
right?
so good.
Far Side of the World.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
My next one, I just watched it for the first time recently, and maybe that's why recency bias, because it feels very much like I'm walking through the neighborhoods of New York. And the whole thing feels like a play that I saw that somebody just filmed, which is Moonstruck.
Oh, yes. It's written by a playwright, one of the great playwrights.
But everything about that is so New York and very specific cultural community that I am not a part of at all. And the third one.
Yeah, that's when you take on faith. You have to believe that actually exists. That there's a handless baker.
Yes.
He took my hand. Yeah, you have to believe that that's true, that there is this whole community that actually works like that. And in Moonstruck, you buy it. You're like, that must really exist.
Or that Cher ever lived among humans.
That's right. She's one of us.
Yeah, no, she is the Cher.
Who walks around. But like
lives in a pod.
Everything from the basement where they're making all the bread to what the bakery looks like. He's got the apartment above and then the brownstone. Like it's just everything about it feels to me very much like a New York that I've been to. I'm kind of torn for the third one between three movies. One is The Godfather, which feels like I feel like that's the one that kind of has to go in.
One or two?
One. Because two's mostly in Italy and Tahoe.
Yeah, but it's old New York.
You do get that early 20th century New York with the black man.
You get a little of it, but
the original San Gennaro Festival. I mean, that's a historical document for me.
There is New York
do love
in
San
it,
Gennaro.
but I feel like the first Godfather is set almost entirely in New York, as opposed to like, and then we get to New York eventually. There we are. That is one. Another, which is like super dingy New York, is 3 Days of the Condor, but I don't think that relies on New York.
No, and he leaves.
I don't know.
Doesn't he end up way out of town by the end of it?
Maybe he does.
Is 3 Days of the Condor the Pelican Brief?
Yeah,
I'm just.
they're the same
Is
one.
it possible that it's a movie?
Yeah,
it is. You played in a triple feature with the Birds.
Yeah.
I'd put Marathon Man before 3 Days of the Condor if you're going
I think you're right.
Spy movies.
So my actual third one, it's not 3 Days of the Condor. It's going to be Saturday Night Fever, which is
it's very New York.
super New York.
Very New York.
Also, like
I live
Tunnel,
blocks
New York.
away from those people, and I hated them.
I was talking to my dad about it. He's like, yeah, it was a really good film. I was like, you remember that there's sexual assault and then 90 seconds later the movie ends, right? And he's like, no, that's not really what it is. I was like, yeah, that's exactly what happens. Content warning, everybody. And like, but it also captures like a specific neighborhood and it's very Aerosmith.
What neighborhood is Saturday Night Fever?
Bay Ridge.
Bay Ridge.
Yeah, Bay Ridge. Also, in my mind, it's Grease, right? It's like fun. There's a flying car at the end. it's a blast.
The only images you ever see of it is when you see
30-year-olds playing high school kids. It's excellent. And then you watch the film and you're like, this is a dark, horrid film.
Fabian runs the hardware store. That's why you're getting it so mixed up.
I don't know.
This is like Disco Mean Streets.
Yeah, because it has disco music in it. It has John Travolta in it. It must be Grease.
Yeah.
It's also like the movie that I saw so many times as a kid because we had WHT, and that was what was playing. That like,
what is WHT?
It's like the worst cable, like pre HBO. Like 10 seconds before HBO, there was WHT, and that's what we couldn't get HBO in New York, but we could get WHT, and it was.
What does this stand for?
Wometco Home Theater.
Ooh.
There was that. There was Summer 42.
Hold on a second. So that one was what was it? Something Home Theater. What was the first one? Wometco Home Theater. And then there was Home Box Office. The idea of just an uncut movie being at home. All their names were like, we're going to turn your home into a theater.
Yeah. Do you want to see Meatballs over and over again? Here it comes.
And then I have so many VHS tapes on WPIX. We edited out all the swears and good parts. We've cut the alien out of the film entirely. Enjoy Meatballs 2.
Does Meatball 2 have the Hey Vern guy in it?
You may be thinking Ernest Goes to Camp.
Okay, yeah. I am. Mark got me. He just got me. He called me out. I'm thinking of entirely.
Which Ernest Goes to Camp, if we were doing Best Camp Movie.
The Meatball Saga, we spliced 1 and 2 together.
You play them chronologically?
You can when half of the movie's in sepia tone for no reason at all. You just have like sepia tone.
All of Ted the Alien's lines are in Italian and subtitled.
Oh my God.
But Tama Janowitz, you guys, I don't want to go back to Slave in New York, but Tama Janowitz. Just say Tama Janowitz, the onomatopoeic feeling of Tama Janowitz. Tama Janowitz. She had giant hair. Not only did she write it, she's in it. She bookends it. She's in the hair salon in the beginning, and then at the end, she's on the toilet talking to Bernadette Peters.
As we all wish we could be.
Yeah, sure.
I always wanted to be on the toilet talking. I always wanted Bernadette Peters as my friend. I want to play ukulele with.
I don't want her to know that I poop.
Don't let her in that room. Yeah, she is a goddess. How dare you want to poop near a goddess?
Oh, angels usually come and get it out of my system for me. They just scoop it out. I don't really have to go.
I only eat exactly the right amount of nutrients, so there's no waste.
There's no zero waste. It comes out of my tears.
I want to go back to a movie from the very beginning that we never talked about because we got sidetracked by whether or not Manhattan was any good, which was not even on this list.
We're going back to Finding Stepmom.
We're going back to Finding Forrester.
I want to edit this list. Sorry.
I want to go back and talk about Annie Hall. We never really got into Annie Hall at all.
Sure. Annie Hall's another movie that, like, I need to verify these facts. Like, as a guy from Manhattan who's lived there for years, I can kind of verify facts. I know neighborhoods. I know these kind of things that happen. That world, like, of Annie Hall is a level up from the way I live. You know what I mean? That's kind of a upper middle class kind of lifestyle. I'm living the downtown life, so I can't verify Annie Hall. Jackson, can you verify Annie Hall?
I'm sure.
You have to trust it.
Are you going to vouch for it right now?
You have to trust. Look, there's
also there's a lot of flashbacks in Annie Hall too, so you get like some Coney Island and stuff. And
yeah,
I need
you get childhood, you get adulthood. There's a trip to California in the middle, right?
Yeah, you can remember the 1940s in Coney Island, which I remember perfectly.
I could ask my dad.
Yeah. Worrying about U-boats? Nope. Nope.
I will say we didn't talk about any of the Neil Simon trilogy that is it's a trilogy of plays. I mean, all of Neil Simon. You've got
Brighton Beach
Memoirs, Lost in Second Avenue.
Those Neil Simon things, although being very New York, exteriors are shot, and then these are like Los Angeles sound stages for most of the stuff. It doesn't really count. Barefoot in the Park, that kind of stuff. You know, it's like.
But you do have like Brighton Beach Memoirs. You're talking about Brighton Beach Memoirs and Biloxi Blues takes place
at the
overseas and in Mississippi, but Brighton Beach Memoirs for certain is like.
But I just wanted to give Neil Simon a shout out because we hadn't mentioned him. Now I realize that he is primarily a playwright, and these are filmed. They probably shouldn't count because they are filmed adaptations of plays.
He did Barefoot in the Park. That's Neil Simon, correct?
Yes.
That's very New York. That whole experience that they have is very New York, and then going to the actual.
Also, on Couple, they drive around the city a bit when they're looking for Felix. They're driving around. They go to the strip bar. They're walking around park.
Do you think
there's more of a flavor in that one? They have an argument on the roof.
I love Neil Simon's work.
I do. I love Neil Simon.
It does feel like a pretty version of New York, which leads me to this, which you think is more beneficial for what we're talking about here? A postcard version of New York City or an actual photograph of
like When Harry Met Sally?
Real New York City. You know what I mean? Like some of these really polished, beautiful versions of New York, even something like Ghostbusters is giving you all the tourist spots. You know what I mean? It's taking you to these locations.
I not showing you a little of both. I want a little of both, and I feel like the New York spirit is like, oh, here it is, warts and all, but don't you love it? You know,
I love that. Yeah.
The New York spirit is like, we're rooting for the Mets, even though we're in second to last place.
So let's talk about these movies. Which of these movies is the Mets? You know?
You're going back to After Hours again. After Hours is really about a guy from uptown who comes downtown for what he thinks is like, it starts off, he looks at his clock, 11:30 at night, right? So it's like that's already a New York thing that you can begin your evening at 11:30 at night.
Yeah,
it's like that's where the movie begins.
Yeah.
So he's just gonna go. He's just gonna go see a girl that he met at a restaurant that I don't know what restaurant it is, but it looks like that. Remember the guy that did I'll have pad thai. Try the pad thai. It looks just like that restaurant. Try the pad thai. I'm famous for it.
That's an inside joke with us.
One time, Jackson and I were in a restaurant, and everybody's talking. There's a din, and out of nowhere, clear as a bell, a guy with a voice that can be heard across the room goes, "Order the pad thai. They're famous for it."
Is it Fred Stoller?
And by they, he meant the Thais. He didn't mean
famous for that specific restaurant.
Possibly the restaurant. Basically,
Thai food is famous for pad Thai.
Famous for pad Thai. You can't go to a Thai restaurant and not get the pad Thai.
I would watch this guy's Food Network show, by the way.
We ticked on that for with so many years that we had a character that started to sound like that. Everybody was pad Thai guy. Yeah, but anyways, that restaurant I think is in the beginning of After Hours where he meets Roseanne Arquette.
Isn't it? Isn't it that diner down in?
There's no diners down in. End of sentence. There's just none. It looks like because that's
not
right
true. Mary Jane Watson works in one.
That's right, Moonlight Diner.
Fictitious.
No, but the diner's really there.
No, there is a diner
that's
that
the
they
west
go
end
to.
of Soho, though. But yeah,
there is a diner they go to. I'm not sure which one that is. There used to be that one on 6th Ave. Do you remember 6th Ave? Right when you get into Soho.
Yeah.
There was that actual brick and mortar diner with the aluminum, all that kind of crap.
Yeah.
And then there's
Spider-Man.
Another one. That's the Spider-Man one, right?
Yeah.
And then there's the other one that's in another good New York film, in the original Men in Black.
Right.
Also has that diner on the west side.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good one. Put Men in Black in there. That's very New York.
Men in Black is very New York.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It even they have to go to Queens at the end, right by Shea Stadium.
That's the Flushing Meadows is the climax of the movie. I'm putting it on.
No, that is a great little tour around the city too, because there's a lot of stuff in the Village.
Yeah.
And
there's the weird. I mean, their headquarters is in the Hudson River air shaft.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is weird, cool. If that comes out winning this episode, it's going to blow my mind.
Here's the task we have.
Yeah.
We've got a list of 900 movies that we've created over the course.
Also into the Spider-Verse. Okay, I'm done.
And I would put Homecoming on there.
Purged of Spider-Verse.
What's that?
I said I would put Homecoming in there because it's Queens, but I think most of that was filmed in other places.
Yeah.
We've got
Doc, how many movies on this list have you actually walked by or seen the filming of?
I got
hope that a lot of them.
Again. Right? Hold on. This list is enormous. It's like 5 pages of 8-point type.
Just go to the little chat over on the side.
Panic in Needle Park is incredibly New York. But
we're still adding them. Okay, we're still adding them.
It's a gloomy New York.
The clock is ticking, but we're still adding them.
12 Angry Men takes place nowhere.
Spider-Man 2, they shot scenes in front of the Astrobase. We kept waving things out the window.
We kept opening an umbrella out our window like idiots. Never showed up in film. I don't know why. I'm picturing a guy digitally removing an umbrella that kept opening because of just us. We live near Peter Parker.
When I was a kid, we drove by the sets of Cruising and King Kong 76.
Hey.
And when I was in college, I watched them blow stuff up on 6th Avenue for the Die Hard 3.
Oh,
that's amazing.
That was the day I bought my camera at B&H Video for my photography class. I just put a roll of film in. So I got pictures of explosions and cars overturned. And when I developed them and turned them in, people were like, what? I looked like a war photographer going, yeah, what did you do for the assignment?
Did you take a picture of an apple?
When they filmed Enchanted, I think it was called Enchanted.
Yeah, the How Do You Know number in Central Park.
When they filmed Enchanted, they shut down my neighborhood for 2 days. It was a nightmare. I walk out of my door and a PA is like, hold on. Oh, yeah. Hold on. Okay, go.
Oh, I had that with 200 cigarettes.
I tried to come home and hold on. All right, you can go. Yeah.
All right, guys, we only have about 7 minutes left. So
my God.
Let's take this list that we have right here. I'm going to throw out a question to you that might narrow this down a bit. The question was asked, what is the best New York movie? Not what is the best movie set in New York. So I will ask, do you think that New York movie is a genre unto itself? Just based on looking at this list of movies that we have here. And we can eliminate some of them if they don't fit into, you know what I mean? The Godfather is one of the greatest movies of all time. Ghostbusters is fantastic. Do these fit into that genre of beginning in the late 70s with Scorsese and the studio system breaking down and these young guys coming up, all the way up through these mid 80s movies.
I'm going to throw out
cleaned up.
I'm tossing out Ghostbusters only because the plot is not contingent on New York. They could do that really anywhere. That would be a fine LA movie. It would be a good movie for Illinois.
Right.
It's a good Illinois film. Ghostbusters could have really boosted tourism in Illinois. I'm just saying.
So what I think we're looking for. I
disagree a little, but okay.
With what?
That Ghostbusters
the size of the buildings?
I think there's definitely a spirit in Ghostbusters that's specifically New York, but it's clearly a ghost genre comedy movie. Yeah, you could get away with somewhere else, but
it's a busting film. It should be in the list of busting films,
and it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
Busting does make you feel good.
Feel good busting films. Yeah.
It's a feel good busting film.
Feel good busting film in the summer.
Yeah.
So
what's like a movie Busting Arizona, one of those films.
Yeah, like Malcolm X is a New York movie, but it's not a New York movie.
Right. It's a biopic. What fits the criteria on this list? Which is available in the chat if you want to see all of the ones that are on this. What movie on this list do you think best exemplifies both the genre of a New York movie and that just because I love that idea of New York, we're gritty and gross, but come on, don't you love us? That kind of vibe of New York City.
Slaves in New York is not on the list. That list is not complete, gentlemen. That's all I'm saying.
I'm gonna add it. I'm gonna add it right now.
Wait,
please add Slaves in New York.
Slaves of New York is okay. You want me to look in the chat that we have on Zoom, and we have After Hours, Dog Day Afternoon, Annie Hall, Slaves of New York, Taking of Pelham 163, New York Story 123. Sorry.
Oh my God.
Thank you.
Okay.
Why? Because it leaves Pelham Bay Park at 123. That's how they know what the Pelham 123 is. It's so New York. You guys don't know it. It's so New York.
I wrote it down wrong. I'm just reading quickly. New York Stories
line.
Mean
it's
Street.
The sixth line that leaves Pelham at 123. That's
Taxi
Pelham
Driver,
123.
Do the Right Thing, Ghostbusters.
There's so
Remo
many
Williams,
we haven't touched.
Moonstruck.
There's
I know.
So many we haven't touched.
The Godfather,
Rosemary's Baby, Serpico.
Rosemary's Baby, yeah, that's a good.
And
one.
yet we have 3 minutes.
West Side Story.
We have 3 minutes. I would put Serpico and West Side Story on that list.
Summer of Sam.
Summer of Sam.
Guys.
That is very specific.
Guys,
we're looking in New York.
We are getting some great shout outs in. We've got to pick one and we have 3 minutes to do it.
This is a two-parter.
Mark.
I'm still going back to my original
Slaves of New York
idea. After Hours and Slaves in New York are so quintessentially, they're not just in New York, they're about New York. New York is not just a character, it's the main character. All the people are trying to survive in New York. Everybody in Slaves New York are, the main character's like, maybe I'm not really a New Yorker and I just want to have a regular family and I don't want a crazy boyfriend, but she finds one in New York. She finds a regular guy at the end. Yay! And After Hours is about a guy that got in over his head downtown, which makes for an exciting movie. It's made by a New Yorker.
Pelham, though.
Pelham's awesome.
Yeah.
Crooklyn. The great Crooklyn's good too. No, Crooklyn's
Jackson,
really good.
please, for God's sake.
I'm trying to narrow it down to like 4 so that we can. I'm trying to find the ones we most agree.
I feel like
the ones that we all went ooh about.
Well, there was only one that appeared on both of your lists and immediately got a response from the only 2 people here who have seen it, and that's After Hours.
Right.
And we talked a while about it. It is that quintessentially New York movie.
I'm kind of falling in love with it.
I'm ready to see it now.
Because I remember going to video stores, to Movies Unlimited, and seeing the poster, which is Griffin Dunn's head being screwed into the top of, it's like a pocket watch. So his neck is all twisted up. And thinking what is that movie?
It's so like Blockbusters kind of box. You know what I mean? They're like, what do you want to rent? How about this? Like, oh, my mom likes that. No way. I don't want to see a guy's head screwed into a clock. It's the worst kind of box.
Oh, is it a real-time movie too? Like it's almost.
Kind of.
Like,
no,
it takes place over the course of one night.
It ends at 1:29 a.m.
It takes place at 11:32
when
the sun's gone.
Right.
Also, can I say this? Cheech and Chong are in it. Cheech and Chong as a comedy team.
Right.
Cheech and Chong are in it.
And there's a couple of Muppets. You'll like it.
Yeah, there's Muppets in it.
I think the most appropriate thing we could do, instead of picking the most popular New York movie, is to go the unexpected route
and listen to
We
two New
wanted
Yorkers.
to pick the most popular New York movie.
But
you don't need us
people,
for that.
I think people would expect, like, aren't you going to say, like, what, we've got that covered here. I think to take something like After Hours and pick that,
we have empiric evidence. Yeah,
right.
Empiric evidence of this. We're not just some poll on Wikipedia. You know, this is New Yorkers going, wait a minute, this is really New Yorky.
Well, look, I think we have our answer then.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's
Because
After Hours.
we had a question.
It is
submitted to us by Tommy Bobo. He wants to know the best New York movie. So we asked a couple of New Yorkers.
The question was best.
Look.
Is it best? It's the best New York film. It's a great film. It's a Scorsese film. When you guys are doing research, that was my research. I rewatch After Hours and I rewatch Slaves New York. Slaves New York is not easy to make.
Did you rewatch Muppets Take Manhattan?
No, I didn't need to rewatch it because it's right here. It's right here in my heart. Why would I have to rewatch that?
For the home viewers,
Hours,
getting them to watch After Hours is a coup, I think. Also, taking home 1, 2, 3, the original, is not as watched as it should be. And
you mean 163?
No, we don't.
Look,
and
Crooklyn is criminally underwatched. Yeah.
Crooklyn is amazing.
It might be
damn near masterpiece.
Well,
really good.
You guys,
Inside Man is great too, though. Inside Man, I love.
Yeah,
you've got a lot of homework to do.
They're going to switch over to the Battlestar Galactica fan fiction panel if we don't.
No, they never will. They're stuck here with us.
Can You Ever Forgive Me? If you didn't watch that 2 years ago, if you didn't get a screener of that,
is that the Melissa McCarthy?
Yeah, and that movie feels like 1994 New York to me.
Oh my god!
Oh yeah, that is a good one too.
I'm shutting it down. I'm saying, people of the world, you have homework to do. You have to watch every movie that you heard mentioned. You have to watch at least twice, but you have to watch The Winner 3 times, which is the 1985 Martin Scorsese film starring New York's favorite son, Griffin Dunn. After Hours, asked and answered.
Boom.
Thanks, guys. Thanks
Jackson
for joining
Publick,
us.
Doc Hammer, thank you for joining us on We Got This today.
Thank you for having us.
We're happy to be a part of the virtual Dragon Con.
Yes.
And thank you to Dragon Con, and thank you to Ken Plume. This topic is closed. There are many more to discuss. So please reach out to us on Twitter at We Got This Tweets. Check out the Maximum Fun subreddit, or
email us at wegotThisPodcast@gmail.com, or go to facebook.com/groups/We Got This Podcast. Talk about your favorite New York movies. Thank you, producer Ken Plume. Thank you to researcher Kate McManus for a list that has been through the fire. Engineer Jen Alva and graphic designer Uri Kelman.
And thanks, of course, to our musicians, Jonathan Dinerstein and Mike Furman, for our score and theme song, respectively. And thanks to you, the people of the world, who give us an opportunity to jump on here with our buddies and talk about some movies that we have seen that we love and some movies that we haven't seen. So thank you, thank you, thank you. For Hal Lublin, I'm Mark Gagliardi.
For Mark Gagliardi, I'm Hal Lublin. And don't worry, everybody.
We got this.
We got this.
Video games.
Video games.
Video games. You like them?
Maybe you wish you had more time for them?
Maybe you want to know the best ones to play?
Maybe you want to know what happens to Mario when he dies?
In that case, you should check out Triple Click. It's a podcast about video games.
A podcast about video games? But I don't have time for that.
Sure you do. Once a week, kick back as 3 video game experts give you everything from critical takes on the hottest new releases
to scoops, interviews, and explanations about how video games work.
To fascinating and sometimes weird stories about the games we love.
Triple Click is hosted by me, Kirk Hamilton.
Me, Jason Schreier.
And me, Maddie Myers.
You can find Triple Click wherever you get your podcasts and listen at MaximumFun.org.
Bye.
Hey, I'm Dan McCoy.
I'm Stuart Wellington.
And I'm Elliot Kalin. Together we're The Flophouse,
A podcast where we watch a bad movie and then talk about it.
Movies like Space Hobos, Into the Outer Reaches of the Unknown and the Things That We Don't Know, the movie, and also Who's That Grandma?
Zazzle Zippers, Breakdown 2, and Backhanded Compliment.
Elvis is a policeman.
Baby Crocodile and the Happy Twins.
Leftover potatoes?
Station Wagon 3.
Herbie Goes to Hell.
New episodes available every other Saturday.
Available at MaximumFun.org or wherever you get your...
MaximumFun.org.
Comedy and culture.
Artist owned.
Audience supported.